Like me, you're probably struggling with remembering everything right now. And even if you don't struggle that much with remembering things, it probably feels very, very overwhelming knowing that you have like 16 modules and so many facts and formulas to remember. But don't worry, I got you. Today, I want to show you my 8-step method that allowed me to memorize everything for my exams, come first in many of my exams, and then rank first in my final degree when I graduated. I mean, if that's not enough proof, I don't know what is. This method is tried and tested, and it always works. It can be a little bit boring and tedious sometimes, but hey, what is that in the grand scheme of becoming disgustingly educated, as Mia Yulin says, and graduating ranking first? Okay, let's jump straight into it. The first step of the framework is that you must make sure that you can contextualize and understand the information and not just memorize it in a very bland manner. Okay, we don't want that. Also, take a look at this cherry tree that I've got. And essentially, for example, if you have the fact that Christopher Columbus was born in 1935, and I could not remember that because I'm not too fussed by Columbus, but then I'm obsessed with Marilyn Monroe. And I know that she was born in 1935 as well. Or she, hit fame in 1935. I know every single thing about Marilyn Monroe. That's the perfect thing to connect Christopher Columbus with. Oh, Christopher Columbus was born in 1935, and that's when she hit the peak of her career. That makes it much better now and much easier for me to recall that information because it's actually connected to something that I know the context of already, okay? Obviously, depending on the subject you want to understand instead, like for example, if you're doing a complicated math or science subject, instead of just learning like rote memorization, like saying, for example, this green tree has a brown branch. But again, that's contextualized because I know what they look like. But for something very, very specific, don't just learn the fact without understanding it first. And to make sure and to know whether you really understand something or not, you must be able to explain it to somebody. Standard Feynman technique. But I'm just going to be like,
so basically, this is how you go through the subtables, and then you can start reciting all the subtables, and so on and so forth.
Right, so much like I was giving you the example of comparing Christopher Columbus to Marilyn Monroe, granted, the dates are wrong, but that very much similarly, you're going to use analogies instead of comparing to something that you love and know very well, right? Because a simple analogy does so much more than paragraphs could ever do in understanding new information. So for example, in my You're Not Lazy, You're Just Managing Time Wrong video, I explain an analogy of when you're trying to study and focus, and then you keep pausing and keep getting distracted and keep getting swiftly taken away from whatever work it is, even if it's like a 1-second thing, every time you come back, you're having to reheat yourself to the same level of focus that you were at before, right? And I compared that to the analogy of using a microwave where you keep opening the door every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds, every, short interval of time, and then like even after 3 minutes of warming it up, you're confused as to why the food isn't hot. It's not because the microwave doesn't work. In the same way, it's not because our brain doesn't work, it's because you keep distracting it and keep opening the microwave door every 5 seconds when you shouldn't be doing that to reach the full potential, as you shouldn't be doing that if you want to warm up your food, right? So that simple analogy helps you understand how the brain works so much better than if I were to sit here explaining in so much detail with so many specific terminologies how the brain works, because that's how our brain is wired. It understands things that we already know the best, right? So if you can get any new information and compare it using an analogy, using something else, some contextualization, to something that you already know, you're going to remember it much, much faster and much better as well. Okay, that's the second thing that you should do to maximize the use of that brain in your noggin. Number 3 would be to make as many possible roads to the little house of knowledge that you've just built. So what does that mean? If you think about a house in a new city that's just being built, and it stands alone here, right? And there's only one road to get to it. One long road from the city centre and this house on the hill, let's say, to get to it. It's going to take you a long time, right? But then, as time goes on, 10 years later, 15 years later, 20 years later, people build more and more roads to that house. Some roads are shorter, some roads are longer, and they're from different places. So that one's from the main town. This is from, let's say Bob lives here. This is from Bob's friend's house, Jenny, who lives here, and she's built a little road there. And then so many other people have built loads of roads, right? And in doing so, it's much easier now to get to Bob's house. Because let's say all of them are connected to the town centre. You're going to eventually, by building so many roads, have a very easy, quick path to get to Bob. And if it's not very easy, there is an easiest path compared to the long, winding road that would take forever, and there was only one of them. In the same way, for every new piece of knowledge that you learn, right, that you take in, that you absorb, that is the house on the hill. And there is only one road from your general memory leading to that house, because there's only one connection. The more you overload your memory with different connections, different cues to the house, to the new piece of information that's here, the easier it is to retrieve. Like, for example, if you're thinking about the word pink, right? Or the concept of pink, the color pink, you know that it's a color, right? It's one of the ones that you taught in school. You know that, oh, girls like pink and boys like blue, even though that's not even a thing. I don't know who created that, but it's a thing. I also know that my favorite color is pink. I know that there are lots of shades of pink. I know that there's coral pink. I know there's some other pink. I know that my pillow is pink, right? I know all of these things about pink. So pink is very much deeply ingrained in my memory. I'm never going to forget what pink is because I know and have so many different cues around it. So in the same way, when you learn a new piece of information, and I'm talking studies because pink is relatively easy to remember compared to some very niche fact in psychology or in math, try and overload your memory with the different roads, the different cues to that piece of information, so to that new formula, to that new subject, like solving some partial differential equation in 2 dimensions with lectures, with worked examples, with doing study session with your friends, with saying it and teaching it to yourself, with doing exam practice questions, with doing all of these different varied things, you create new neurological links to that same piece of information, therefore making it stronger in your memory because your brain's like, okay, there's loads of stuff that connects to this. It's obviously very important. It's quite easy to trick the brain. And then also, it's quicker to retrieve because something in an exam is going to trigger your memory, but it's not like there's only one trigger for it. There's 10 triggers. So it's much easily brought to the forefront of your memory than something with only one trigger that you did like years and years ago that you wouldn't be able to remember unless you had that one specific trigger, right? So use that to your advantage. Overload your brain with all of these different cues for one piece of information, okay? So different roads, loads of different roads to that one house on the hill is going to make your memory much, much better, much efficient too. Okay. Part 4 of this framework is very, very important. Part 4 and 5 go together and they basically tell you exactly what you have to do to combat this active forgetting process. So essentially, part 4 is using active recall. So you've got to make sure that every single thing that you're doing, it is using the active part of your brain and not the passive part, which you're probably thinking, oh, I already know all of that. Don't keep telling me. But this is the single most lethal technique that you can use, genuinely. I mean, every single one of these is great. Every single step of this framework is necessary, but this one has to be the top. Alongside the 5th one that's coming up. So make sure that when you're looking at things, use flashcards, okay? Don't just sit and read. Make sure you're actually actively testing yourself. When you keep reciting things, that's when it happens. I just reviewed this Korean girl's routine, and she puts a post-it notes on the things that she needs to remember, and every time she goes to post-it notes, she goes and she reads it out. She recites it. That means that she's actively recalling that information and therefore forcing it to stick in her brain. Because our brain doesn't remember things that we don't force it to remember, because that's how our brains are wired. Okay. Now, the 5th thing is spaced repetition. So active recall, I don't want to say it's largely useless, but it kind of is without spaced repetition together. Because if you actively recall something once and then you never ever look at it again, you're not going to have a very strong memory of it. But if you actively recall something today and then next week and then in 2 weeks and then in a month and then in a year, chances are you're going to remember that really, really, really well. And that spacing out repeating that I just explained from the 1 week to a month, then 2 weeks, then a year, that is called spaced repetition. And that is what you want to utilize alongside active recall to reap the maximum benefits of your memory, because it's 2 things that are specifically targeted to work alongside the way that our brains naturally work, our memory naturally works, right? And Anki is the best for this because Anki has those 2 algorithms built into it. So it's forcing you to actively recall information by giving you flashcards. And of course, well-made flashcards are always going to be the best source of testing and exam revision. And then by getting you to rate how well you know the information at the bottom, so I'll try and input a screen as well, where it says, I know this good, you can test me in 1 day. I don't know this at all, test me in another 10 minutes. I know this very, very good, test me in 4 days, right? by getting you to rate it like that, it's then using that spaced repetition to bring that card up, that information up on that card at the next time that you're most likely to forget it, right? So at the time that you're most likely to forget it, where your memory's going to go, whoop, it goes, no, here it is again. And your memory goes, yeah, I remember this. Or it figures it out. And it's like, okay, now I'm back to the top. Now I'm back at 100% with this information, right? So use Anki. It's hands down the best exam revision, exam memorization tool, specifically for memorization tool out there, right? And I'm not sponsored by them or anything like that. And it's completely free to use. You can use it on Anki Web. You can use it on an app as well. So yeah, it's amazing. I will forever stand by Anki, and you should too. Okay, that's the 5th thing. Okay, my tip number 6 is that you compare very similar information. So if there's 2 things that are very confusing, maybe they have the same spelling, maybe they have, I don't know, like a very similar concept. Like in statistics, you have this Wilcoxon sum rank, and then you've got this Wilcoxon sign rank or something like that. I can't remember exactly now. See, it's confusing me. But I'm going to have them listed up here. And what you should do with these similar topics of information, and they always come up in every single subject, is you should have a table with Wilcoxon sum rank, Wilcoxon sign rank, and you should have similarities between the two and differences between the two. And you should make them as specific to each as possible. Right? I'll give you an example on the screen because I can't think off the top of my head right now. But the more specific that you make this table, right? And if you can include mnemonics and things like that too, sum and the word sign, it makes it much easier. The easier it is to remember both of them and what makes them different. If you can remember what makes them different, then you basically know the difference between them and you will not get confused between them. Okay, that's my top tip number, I think 6 now. Yeah, I think it's 6. So for number 7, I can't like this, 7, you need to apply the knowledge that you've just learned immediately, right? So if you learn a new piece of information and it's about how children or like very, very young newborn infants attach to their mothers in the first 0 to 3 months of their life on this beautiful earth, and you're like, okay, well, now I've learned this information, it's going to go out of your head, right? Unless you apply it to a question. And I mean really apply, not just, oh, okay, well, how does it work? And then you just vaguely explain it. Apply it to more of a complex question where you have to do a bit more thinking and make a few more links in your brain to get to the answer of that question. And if you do that, as you're studying this new information, within 10 minutes of studying the new information, you're going to find that you remember it much better the next day than if you were to just read through it or someone were to talk you through it and you're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. But then you never actually made the effort of applying that information, that knowledge, to a specific question to answer. Because when you're being asked a question and you're explaining it, you're now teaching it, right? But if you're just doing it on paper, you're teaching it to yourself by explaining it in that way or making that link in that way. So that's number 7. That's not 7. You get it. Okay, that's number 7. This is the bonus tip for everybody who has made it this far in the video. Thanks for watching all the way. But this one's just for you. Make sure that your lifestyle, your diet, your sleep, these things are in check. Because if they're not, you can do as much study in the world as you want. You can do as much active recall, spaced repetition, Anki, doing all of this stuff, and it will be completely useless because stress, sleep, that stuff genuinely affects how your memory is consolidated. And without good sleep schedule and low stress, low cortisol levels, you are not going to get anywhere. So please make sure you're having a healthy diet. You are taking walks and things, touch some of these leaves. I don't know if you can see that. Just get in touch with nature, touch some of these leaves. Or maybe you can even touch some grass. Anyway, the point is, make sure that you are not just solely focusing on studying and forgetting that there are other parts of life that exist. You want a holistic approach. Okay, so I've been jumping literally all over the world. I've literally been in my room, in my garden, in the other room, all over the world to film this video for you so you don't get bored as you watch through it, and also so that it's more memorable because you saw my cherry tree, right? Who's not going to remember that? And hopefully you won't forget this video, and hopefully you're going to use at least 3 of the tips. So if you try and implement at least 3 of the tips, one at a time, you will find that you're able to remember stuff much quicker than you would have been able to maybe a long time ago. So if you enjoyed this video, you're definitely going to enjoy all of my other study videos that I do. So I'm going to leave a link here to my playlist. That's called, what's it called? I don't know why I've completely forgotten. The playlist, which is hilarious because I'm supposed to be talking about how I have this amazing memory. You see, I don't have amazing memory. I just use these things, these tips, and that's how I managed to graduate ranked first. And in a math degree too. Either way, it's Teddy Teaches or something like that. Taught by Teddy, there you go. See, I haven't seen it enough because I haven't been adding stuff to that playlist, clearly. Anyway, I'll put that playlist up for you to enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.